We got us a 93 C1500 Chevy pickup. And they're complaining as the check engine light was on. Now, we're gonna do a little test run here. See if my OBD1 setup here, I'm in the DLC there, I got the GM adapter and the power feed to it. I did hear this baby come on, but that's my setup to pull the codes, and I want to see. I'll show you guys how to flash them out too, but let's see, I've had this hooked up before, so 93, let's activate that. Alright, so it's a rear-wheel drive Chevy pickup C1500, it's not four-wheel drive, otherwise it'd be a K-series, right? So let's go to scanner, and there you go, throttle body injection. And it's under 8,600 gross vehicle weight, it's an automatic transmission. Let's see if we can communicate with this engine. Display codes. Alright, so we had a code 54 for the fuel pump relay or circuit fault. Okay? Alright, well, we're going to do this a little backwards because I've already diagnosed this one, but I'm going to show you guys how I was confused during this testing process. So let me cut to that, and then once we get done with that, I'll show you the repair. It is a bad fuel pump relay, guys. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. I'm in engine controls basic testing, and it's telling me check mill operation, turn ignition on with the scan tester not connected, mill should be on steady, ground DLC test terminal B, mill should flash code 12, followed by any codes that are stored in the ECM. If light goes from bright to dim or light remains on and does not flash code 12, go here, check for short to ground and da-da-da-da-da. So DLC terminal B, we need to ground it. Let's look at that. Fuel injection diagnostic circuit schematic. So B is going to be that white black right next to the ground, right? Diagnostic test in the ECM. So if we ground that pin B, and really all we got to do is just jumper A to B, right? But what we'll do is we'll just take our jumper we got, and we'll go right to ground on our cigarette lighter. And then we need to watch the dash, the service engine soon light, and count the flashes. It's going to start with a 12, and then any codes that are in there, and then I think it ends with a 12 if I remember right. So let's see what we get. Alright, she's grounded right now. Let's count our flashes. 1, 2, 1, 2, there's 12. 1, 2, so 12 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 54. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So code 54. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Code 54 3 times. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's looking like 12 and 54 are my codes. Alright, so tests with codes for the transmission, tests with codes for a V6, tests with codes for a V8. We have a V8 with codes. Let's go to introduction. I'm just doing some research here real quick. Self-diagnostic system. Retrieving codes, non-scan, reading trouble codes. Okay, trouble code identification 12. No engine speed sensor reference pulse. Okay, and that's probably going to set just because it's not started. So it's code 54. 53, 54, and 55. EGR fault on the 3.8. Okay. 54. Fuel pump circuit voltage low. So let's think about that. So let me write that down. So if you remember right, the DLC was getting its power feed from the fuel pump control relay, and it's flashing code 54 for fuel pump circuit voltage low. Now there's a little 1 there. We should go down to the bottom and read these footnotes. Engine code covered in this article. Okay, whatever that means. So we want to go after this fuel pump. Now remember I said it kind of has an extended crank. So are we dealing with a bad pump? Are we dealing with a bad fuel pump relay? I mean, that's where I'm headed. I guess I could get some more information. The customer wasn't complaining about long crank time, wasn't complaining about any drivability issues, but that's the reason, code 54. So let me do some research on this circuit. All right, so check this out. That red that we weren't getting the power feed from the fuel pump relay. Follow that up, and it comes to the splice point. Orange gray, the orange gray, gray fuse. So this is a fuse, inline fuse, 20 ampere oil pressure switch, fuel pump / oil pressure switch. Now this is, I remember this on older Chevys. If I follow that up, fuel pump tank unit, the gray. Chevy seems to always use gray. And it comes to a splice there, fuel handling module, and fuel pump feed fused. So the feed is coming from the ECM. So I would say, guys, the easiest way to test this is going to be to go to the relay, the fuel pump relay. And what we're going to be looking for is on the switch side, we need to be looking for that power feed. Now, I don't know where this lives, but I'll find it. And I apologize for the length. I'm just trying to look at how this is designed. So then it comes up. Okay. And it looks like, I mean, we could go to the fuel pump too. Should we just go right to the fuel pump? Let's go underneath and look. Alright, sorry guys, I'm kind of all over the place. So it took me a while to figure this out. You wouldn't think it would, but these old systems, okay, they were kind of different. So right now what we're gonna do is, I know where this fuse is, this inline fuse. So I want to show you the red wire going into the DLC, okay? Key off, engine off is a full-time ground right now, okay? And it goes through the fuel pump relay, okay? So that means it's getting its ground. If you look, you see how so if I come here with my test light at the DLC, this is going to be a ground, okay? On that red wire, the one that I thought was a power feed, right? So here's how it works. It's getting its ground through the relay, and you can see it comes up to the splice point, and one goes off to the oil pressure switch, okay? I've got that connector, I've got that disconnected right now, and I can check there for ground, and I got good ground on this gray. This comes over to the 20 amp fuse, which is mounted under the power distribution box under there, and it's labeled, guys, so it's pretty straightforward. But right now I have full-time ground, and if you look, that comes up to a splice point, and one side goes to the one's gonna go to the fuel pump, and the other one comes up here to the PCM, which says fuel pump feed, fused feed, okay? That will switch So let me show you real quick. Let me go. I'm going to put the test light. We're going to put the test light right on the gray. Right here on the fuel pump relay, okay? And I'm going to show you that ground with the key off. So look to be positive. Tie it into the gray. Keys off for ground. Alright, can we see it from here? There, you can see it. Let me crank it. I'll put the key on. Keys on. Still lit. Let me crank it. Stays lit, right? So that stays a full-time ground. Okay? That's staying a full-time ground right here. Now, let me hook that. Okay, it's making a liar out of me. Keys off. Let me turn the key to on to prime the pump. Look at that. Again, let me crank it. She started, tried. Look at that. That is not a good ground. Okay. Or I'm sorry. That is remaining a ground, but not really. If that makes sense. So I'm hooked to be positive. You can see the light got dim. Oh gosh, seriously. Okay, so the light got dim and we're hooked in right here on the gray. So when the relay is energized, this switch is going to switch over to the orange, okay? So I'm tapped in at the relay on the orange. Let's go see what that does with the test light hooked to B negative. Alright, keys off. You can see I'm hooked to B negative with that test light. You can see we got a power feed there, right? And we're on the orange. So let's follow that orange up, and you can see it comes to the splice. One goes off to the fuel, oil pressure switch. One goes off to another fusible link. And then the other comes up here, right to the PCM. And it says 12 volt battery feed, right? Okay, so that means this side needs to remain a ground, okay? When this relay energizes, in order for it to complete. That 12 volt feed is going to stay there. So let me show you. Key on, engine off. Okay, that would be the prime. That 12 volts there on the orange. Crank it. And 12 volts stays there, okay? That's a full-time power. So let's think about this. If that's a full-time power coming from the orange, right? And this switch closes, it means you're gonna have power coming up through the oil pressure switch, out this way on the inline fuse, the 20 amp fuse, right? But if you remember right, when I was tied into the gray, okay, I was hooked to be positive, okay, and that light was staying lit. Okay, that light should have went out, and it's not going out, so we got a problem in our relay, and I'll prove it to you. So I'll switch back to the gray. Okay, again, the orange is a full-time battery feed. Key on, engine off, run, doesn't matter. So when the relay is energized and this contact closes, this side here should become hot on the gray. Alright, I just switched over. My test light's not lit, key off. We're on the gray now at the relay. So let's see if that switch power happens when I key it on. Nothing. I got nothing. Oh wait, I do. Is it dim? Let's try it again. key on. There's our prime. Look how dim that light is. Let's crank it. Super dim. Tries to start, but he can't. So, let's hook our test light to be positive. And look at that side of the switch again. Again, remember that gray. So, let's think about that. So, if we don't have a good power feed coming out on the gray, all right, it's got to be an internal problem to the relay, guys. Has to be. Let's give that gray a power feed, because we're not going to hurt anything by giving it a power feed, guys. If we give that gray a power feed, okay, we might actually, though. I don't want to do that. Okay, let's test this. So, if we have a poor power feed on the gray, could it be pulling it down somewhere in the rest of the circuit? It could be, maybe, right? Power's coming in, should be coming out on the gray when we key on, because that would be our prime. And we're getting a light, but a very dim one. Let's see, that light should go out after a while with the key on. There it goes. Okay, yep. That would have been our prime. Now if I crank it, I got nothing, right? Let's try hooking that test light to be positive and see what happens. Okay, key's off and it's a full-time ground. Let me cycle it on. That light should be going out right now with the prime, and it's not, because that should have just turned into a power feed. Let's crank it. Now we got a no start. Now watch this. Key off, key on. There, it's working. Starts right up. It's intermittent. It is a fuel pump relay problem, no doubt about it. But is it because we got a bad control side? Well, the black is a full-time ground, so we can check that loaded. And I'm just going to grab my 5 amp test light for that. And then the other side would be a switched power, which comes up from our fuel pump relay control right from the ECM. So the ECM switches power to this relay on this. Oh, what the hell color is that? Dark green white is our switched power. Okay, and when that computer switches that 12 volt feed to that fuel pump relay, it's going to find its path to ground here. Let's check that ground quick. Alright, again, not trying to kill you guys with overkill here. Right now, I'm in the black-white, the ground side of the control for the fuel pump relay with a 5 amp test light hooked to B positive. Okay, I got the key on, engine off. She's holding. Let me try cranking it. Pull my reed. Alright, let's crank it. Nothing wrong with that ground. Let's check for our switch power on the green. Oh, color is it? Dark green white. Okay. Which means we're going to have to switch our polarity of our 5 amp test light. Our 5 amp test light over to B negative. Actually, I'm going to switch to the 2.5 amp. I don't want to do 5 amps. We're just going to do 2.5 amps. Alright guys, I wasn't comfortable doing a 2.5 amp test light, so I just got my regular test light in there. Again, we're on the dark green wire. That would be the switched power from the ECU or the ECM to the fuel pump relay control side. Key on, engine off. There's our prime. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. And it should shut off. There it is. Let's key it off, key it on. No prime. Key it off, key it on. No prime. Let's crank it. Still not starting, still not starting. Key it off, key it on. There's our prime. Key it off, key it on. There's our prime. Off, on, oh prime. But as soon as I start cranking it, we got a prime. So every time I key it off and key it on, we're getting a prime. But I think it shuts down after so many primes because, you know, it doesn't want to keep running the pump. You know, is that a bad? Interesting. Let me go hook up that oil pressure switch. All right, again. Key off, key on. No prime. Key off, key on. There she fires right up. With the oil pressure switch, of course. Key off, key on. Key off, key on. Key off, key on. So maybe with that oil pressure switch disconnected. See, now if I key off and key on, we're not getting a prime. That's probably because the computer only does it so much. As soon as I crank it, she fires right up. Interesting. Now everything's working. I need to check this. I need to check this control side again. See, now the computer's working just fine. Except for there. Now I lost my prime again. No prime. No prime. No prime. It's gotta be a computer just shutting it down. Let me go look at control side again. Okay, so I got the test light hooked to ground and I'm on the orange, which is a full-time power feed. I'm gonna hook my high amp test light to that. So we got a good power feed. Great. What is going on? It's gotta be that relay, guys. It's gotta be. Alright, so I got the new relay in and I'm back probed in on the, I don't know if you're going to be able to see my test light right there. Zoom in. I'm back probed in on the gray wire, okay? And I'm hooked to B positive, so it's grounded right now. Now when I turn the key to on, it's going to prime, and that's going to switch. That should switch over to a power. Okay, so key off. Key on for the prime, goes out, it'll come back on once the computer's done priming it. Come on, there it is. Go ahead and start it. Fires right up, shut it off, let it sit for a little bit. Then you can see our ground is back. Turn it on, computer's gonna give it a prime. And there it is. Fires right up, okay? I'll show you what it looks like. I'm hooked to battery positive there. Again, we went through this, right? And I was getting super confused. So anyways, let's clear this fault. Let's go back. Oh, I got my key off, duh. Retry. Now, those connectors, those OBD1 connectors came with my Varus Pro, or D10, whatever you guys want to call it. And I kept them. And I traded in my Varus for the Zeus. Now, the Zeus does not come with those OBD1 connectors, guys, so keep that in mind when you trade in. Don't give them anything. You don't have to. Alright, so here's the engine, so let's clear it. Yes. Alright, so let's cycle it off. Back to on, hit continue. Display codes. We got no codes. Start it up. And let me go back. Shut it off. Key it on. Shut it off. Key it on. Oh, she fires up nice now. No codes. Alright. That's it, guys. Sorry for all the confusion, but I got my ass kicked by this one. It took me a while to figure out the circuit design, but I was talking to Chris Groff from Science of Diagnostics, and he said that that oil pressure switch is essentially a backup in case the fuel pump relay. Essentially, if the fuel pump relay fails, guys, that oil pressure switch is like the backup relay for it. So the vehicle will still start with a bad fuel pump relay. Crazy, right? I think vice versa too. Like if the oil pressure switch were to go out, maybe no. Actually, I think if the oil pressure switch goes out and you look at the circuit, I believe you'll have extended crank time. Well, anyways, Chris, if you're watching, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have a lot of time to go into detail on it, but anyways, I don't see these every day, guys, so it took me a while, but kind of a cool truck, I guess, you know, for an old 93. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.